Welcome to The Explainer. So, I want you to start by doing something kind of difficult today. Totally forget your instincts. If you know how to play traditional chess, your brain is completely hardwired to protect the king at all costs. You know the drill. You castle early, you build a massive fortress of pawns, and you keep your most vital piece safely tucked away until the very end. Well, today we're throwing all of that out the window. In this explainer, we're breaking down the version 1.0 specification for a radically reimagined game called King Escape. We're going to unlearn those protective habits, because in this game, your king isn't a coward hiding behind pawns. It's literally your ultimate active race piece. Here's a quick look at the roadmap for today. We're going to cover the King Escape twist, breaking the start lock, locks and secure squares, winning the escape race, and finally, achievements and rank progression. All right, let's jump in. Section 1, the King Escape twist. Okay, let's dive into this massive subversion of player expectations. In standard chess, the white king starts safely on e1, deep in its own territory, basically just acting as a passive target. But in King Escape, the kings are completely swapped. The white king starts all the way on e8, deep inside black's territory, and the black king starts on e1, totally surrounded by white's army. And here's the truly jaw-dropping part. The concept of checkmate is entirely erased from the rulebook. There is no checkmate. You aren't trying to corner the enemy king to end the game anymore. You're actually trying to pilot your own king across the board like a high-stakes race car. The source documentation captures this core fantasy perfectly. It says, your king starts in danger. Checkmate does not exist. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. You start the game already in enemy territory. The tension is absolutely immediate. You don't have time for slow, methodical openings. You've got to spring into action right away because your primary piece is stranded behind enemy lines. It just completely flips traditional chess strategy on its head. To make this hypermobile king fantasy actually work, several of the familiar mechanics you know are stripped away. Like we said, there's no checkmate. But there's also no castling, meaning you can't magically swap your king to safety. There's no en passant for the pawns. And here's a huge one. Non-king moves are completely legal even if your own king stays in or actually enters an enemy check. Your king being threatened doesn't magically paralyze your entire army from doing other things. The game strips away these standard rules to focus purely and ruthlessly on the king's physical movement across the board. Section 2, breaking the start lock. Now, you might be wondering, if my king starts on the absolute opposite side of the board, why don't I just immediately run away? Well, the game introduces this brilliant puzzle right at move 1. Because the kings are swapped, they don't just start in danger, they are completely trapped in what the game calls a start lock. When the game begins, your king literally cannot make a normal movement. It is frozen. Your very first challenge as a player is figuring out how to break this lock and free your most vital piece. And the danger doesn't magically stop once you break that initial lock. We also really need to understand enemy check, or what the game engine actually calls a check freeze. If your opponent targets your king with an attack, your king is instantly frozen in place. Unlike traditional chess, an enemy check doesn't end the game, but it completely paralyzes your star runner, while sniper fire just rains down. You can still move your other pieces, sure, but your king is stuck in the mud, bringing your race to a dead halt until you desperately resolve the situation. Section 3, locks and secure squares. So, we know the king starts locked, and we know enemy checks freeze the king. How in the world do we actually unfreeze it? Well, here is the most mind-bending mechanic yet. It's the concept of a home check. You literally have to use your own pieces to actively attack your own king square. Yes, you heard me right, friendly fire. The primary mechanism for interacting with your king's locked state is to aim your own bishops, knights, rooks, or queen directly at your own king. It's this brilliant paradox where you literally have to attack your king to save it. And here is the dramatic cause and effect reaction of doing exactly that. If your king is currently locked by the enemy and you successfully perform a home check, you trigger what's called a forced unlock. This is a super high-stakes mandatory state. You've essentially shocked your king out of its freeze. But now, your only legal move is to step to a safe, adjacent square. If you trigger this forced unlock and your king has nowhere safe to step, you lose, immediately. It's a wildly tactical maneuver that demands some really careful spatial planning. But what if your king is already free and moving and you decide to home check it anyway? Doing that creates a secure square. By actively attacking your own free king, you establish a temporary safe haven. As long as your king sits on that exact secure square, any enemy attacks, those check freezes we talked about earlier, are completely suppressed. It's an absolutely incredible defensive tool to keep your momentum going as you race down the board, letting you just totally ignore enemy sniper fire. Section 4. Winning the escape race. So we've survived the early game, we've broken the locks, and we're sprinting. How do we actually end this thing and take home the win? The win conditions are strictly geographic. White wins by driving their king to rank 4 or below, meaning safely across the middle of the board and into their own side. Black wins by reaching rank 5 or above, escaping back up to their territory. It's a literal foot race. You don't need to wipe out the enemy army. You literally just need to cross the finish line with your king. However, you can definitely still stumble before you hit that finish line. Even though traditional checkmate is gone, there is a tragic, unforced error you can make, which is known as a lock loss. This immediate loss triggers if you're in a forced unlock state, but no legal safe king move actually exists. Your king is effectively cornered while being forced to move by your own home check. It is the absolute only way you can lose the game outside of losing the physical foot race. So what happens if neither player actually crosses the finish line and nobody gets lock lost? The game employs this strict, cascading 50-move tiebreak system. Imagine a ticking clock hitting 0 and the referee instantly stepping in to evaluate the board. First question, who is closer to their escape rank? That player wins. If the kings are equally close, second question, who has more material value left on the board? And if that's still a tie, the game resolves as a draw. It guarantees that matches stay super brisk and fiercely competitive up to the very last second. There is one fascinating exception to the race, though, known as the counter-escape exception. Because white moves first, they technically have a slight tempo advantage in a pure race. So to ensure absolute fairness, if white crosses their escape line, the game actually pauses. It checks to see if black has an immediate, legal king move that would also result in an escape on the very next turn. If black can step across the line right after white, the game is declared a draw. It's just this beautiful piece of meticulous game design that perfectly balances out that first mover advantage. All right, so we've covered a ton of deep, intricate mechanics, home checks, lock losses, 50-move tiebreaks. The strategy ceiling here is absolutely massive, which naturally begs the question, how does King Escape actually track your mastery of these intense mechanics? How do you prove to the world you're actually getting better? Section 5. Achievements and rank progression. Well, the devs didn't just build a clever rule set. They built a really robust meta system to reward players as they climb up a 12-level bot ladder. And the game genuinely rewards you based entirely on your personal playstyle. You could be a ruthless queen hunter, aggressively taking down the enemy's best piece. Or maybe you're more of a pacifist, who wins without ever letting the enemy activate a home check against you, earning the fortress badge. Or, if you're kind of like me, you scrape by with a chaotic win from a massive material deficit just to proudly claim that comeback king title. These achievements basically guide you to master every single facet of the game. And as you hunt those achievements, you're grinding against a highly tuned bot ladder. Beating a basic level 1 bot gets you a modest 20 XP. But if you want to max out your account at level 30, you are going to need to face the true challenge. Conquering those brutal level 12 bots will explode your payout to a massive 800 XP. But there is a really vital prestige-defining distinction we have to highlight here. Your XP level simply represents your total playtime and grind. It just naturally goes up the more you play. Your rank score, however, represents your actual, undeniable skill. Clamped between 0 and 5 stars, it's a direct mathematical reflection of the average strength of the bots you are actively defeating. You literally can't just grind level 1 bots to fake a 5-star rank. To get a high rank score, you have to consistently beat high-level bots. It's the ultimate flex and the true measure of your mastery. So, we started this explainer by asking you to completely forget your instincts. And now that you've seen exactly how the swapped positions, the forced unlocks, the home checks, and those relentless race mechanics all interlock in King Escape v1.0, the only thing left to ask is this. Are you ready to unlearn the rules, embrace that gorgeous bronze and split king duality, and finally let your king lead the charge? Because the starting lines are drawn, and your king is waiting. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.